I missed the train by 30 seconds. 30, damn, seconds. I stood there, on that empty platform, watching the red taillights disappear into the tunnel like dying embers. My purse was still open, ticket stub clutched uselessly in my shaking hand. The 9:47 to Millbrook, the last train of the night, was gone, and I was alone. At 63 years old, you'd think I'd have learned to be on time. But no. Here I was, stranded at Union Station at damn near 10 o'clock on a Thursday night, with nothing but fluorescent lights humming above me and the smell of rain-soaked concrete rising from the tracks below. The platform emptied fast. Couples hurried toward the parking garage. A businessman in a wrinkled suit jogged past me without a glance. Within minutes, I was the only person left standing under those flickering lights, and the silence pressed in like a physical weight. I should have called a cab. Should have walked upstairs to the main terminal and found a bench to wait on until the morning train. Should have done anything except stand there feeling sorry for myself. But then I heard it. A voice. Her voice. I can't believe we actually pulled it off. My blood went cold. I knew that voice the way I knew my own heartbeat. Soft, measured, with that little catch she got when she was nervous. Sarah, my daughter. But that was impossible. Sarah was in Ohio, 3 states away. She'd left 4 days ago for her father's funeral, my ex-husband Tom's funeral. Heart attack, they said. Sudden. Tragic. He was only 67. She'd called me crying from the airport, begging me not to come. Mom, please, it's too hard. I need to do this alone. Just me and Marcus. You and Dad had so much history, bad history. Let me remember him my way. I'd agreed because that's what you do when your daughter's voice cracks like broken glass. You swallow your own grief and let her have hers. So why the hell was she here? In this station? Tonight? I moved without thinking, my worn sneakers silent on the concrete as I crept toward the edge of the platform. There was a stairwell there, narrow, poorly lit, that led down to the underpass connecting the platforms. The voice was coming from below, echoing up through that concrete tunnel. I leaned over the metal railing. The yellow lights down there cast everything in sickly shadows. I could see the top of someone's head, blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. Sarah's ponytail. The one she'd worn since she was 12. My hand gripped the railing so tight my knuckles went white. Mom can never know what really happened to him. The world tilted sideways. I pressed myself against the cold railing, every muscle in my body locked. My purse slipped off my shoulder and hit the ground with a soft thud, but I didn't pick it up. Couldn't. All I could do was stand there, breathing in shallow gasps, listening. What really happened to him? Not what happened at the funeral, not how hard it was. What happened to him? There was a pause, long enough that I wondered if I'd imagined it, long enough that I almost convinced myself I'd misheard. Then a man's voice spoke from the shadows below, low, calm, familiar in a way that made my skin crawl. You did what you had to do, babe. He had it coming. I knew that voice too. Marcus, my son-in-law, Sarah's husband of 6 years, the man who'd held my hand at our wedding and called me Mom and sent me flowers on my birthday. Sarah laughed. Not a happy laugh. Not the bright musical sound I remembered from her childhood. This was bitter, sharp, like glass scraping against stone. He deserved worse than what we gave him. My legs gave out. I didn't fall somehow. I caught myself on the railing, but my whole body went numb. The fluorescent lights above me flickered once, twice, and for a moment I thought I might pass out right there on that empty platform. He deserved worse than what we gave him. Not, he deserved better. Not, I wish things had been different. Worse than what we gave him. What the hell did that mean? My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Tom died of a heart attack. That's what the hospital said. Natural causes. Stress, high blood pressure, a lifetime of bad habits finally catching up to him. Sarah had called me sobbing from the emergency room, her voice raw with shock. He just collapsed, Mom. Right in front of me. 1 minute he was fine, and then she'd broken down before she could finish. I'd believed her. Why wouldn't I? You don't question your daughter when she's grieving. But now, think she suspects anything? Marcus's voice again, quieter this time. No. Sarah's voice was firm, cold. She doesn't suspect a damn thing. She never does. Something sharp twisted in my chest. Not just fear, something worse. Hurt. The kind of hurt that comes from realizing your own child sees you as blind, stupid, easy to fool. I wanted to move, wanted to run down those stairs and scream at her, demand answers, shake her until she explained what the hell she'd done. But I couldn't. Because somewhere deep down, beneath the shock and the horror and the betrayal, I already knew. Tom didn't die of a heart attack. My daughter killed him. And I'd been too wrapped up in my own loneliness, my own quiet little life, to see it coming. The voices below went quiet. I heard footsteps, 2 sets, moving away through the underpass. I should have left. Should have turned around and gotten as far away from this nightmare as possible. Instead, I stood there, frozen, staring down into that yellow-lit tunnel. And that's when I heard it. The third voice. Older, raspier, a voice I didn't recognize. You two better hope she doesn't figure it out, because if she does... The voice cut off abruptly, and I heard Sarah hiss something I couldn't make out. Then the footsteps started again, faster this time, heading toward the far exit. I backed away from the railing, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my ribs. If she does what? What would they do to me? I should have run. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to turn around, walk away, pretend I'd never heard a damn thing. But my feet wouldn't move. It was like they'd been nailed to that concrete platform, and all I could do was stand there, staring down into that underpass, waiting for my world to fall apart completely. The third voice had gone silent. Sarah and Marcus were still down there. I could hear their footsteps echoing, slow and deliberate now, like they were pacing. Talking low enough that I couldn't make out the words. I needed to hear more. God help me, I needed to know. My hand reached out, gripping the cold metal railing, and I took the first step down, then another. The stairs were narrow, grimy, the kind of place you'd never go alone at night if you had any sense. The yellow lights flickered overhead, casting shadows that moved like living things. I pressed myself against the tile wall, my coat scraping against the dirt and old graffiti. Each step felt like walking toward my own execution, but I couldn't stop. Told you it would work. Marcus's voice, clearer now, confident. The pills were genius. Nobody questions a heart attack at his age. My breath caught in my throat. The pills. 3 months, Sarah said, and I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. 3 months of swapping them out every time I visited him, every single Wednesday, like clockwork. He never even noticed. Because he trusted you, Marcus again. And there was something cruel in the way he said it, almost proud. I froze on the stairs halfway down, my back pressed so hard against the wall I could feel every crack in the tile digging into my spine. Pills. Swapping pills. 3 months. My mind raced backward, trying to piece it together. Tom had been complaining about his medication for months. I remembered because he'd called me one of those rare, awkward calls where we tried to be civil for Sarah's sake. He'd said his blood pressure meds weren't working right, that he felt off, dizzy, his heart racing at odd times. Maybe you should see a different doctor, I'd told him. Maybe I should, he'd said, and then we'd hung up because we never had much to say to each other anymore. That was 2 months ago. 6 weeks later, he was dead. I saw his face in my mind, pale, confused, reaching for my hand in that hospital room when I'd arrived after Sarah called. He'd looked so small in that bed, hooked up to machines that beeped and whirred, like he was already more machine than man. I don't understand, he'd whispered. I did everything right, took my meds, watched my diet. Why is this happening? I'd squeezed his hand and told him everything would be okay. 3 hours later, he was gone. My throat tightened. My vision blurred. She killed him. My daughter killed her father. Do you think she suffered? Sarah's voice cut through my thoughts, and for a moment, one brief, stupid moment, I thought she meant me. That somehow she knew I was standing there, listening, dying inside. But she didn't mean me. Who cares? Marcus said flatly. He's dead. That's all that matters. I care. Sarah's voice cracked. I needed him to suffer, after everything he did. And he did. Marcus cut her off. Trust me, babe. Heart failure? That's not a peaceful way to go. He felt every second of it. I heard Sarah let out a long, shaky breath. Then she laughed, that same bitter, broken sound from before. Good. My hand flew to my mouth, pressing hard against my lips to keep from making a sound. Tears burned hot behind my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Couldn't. Not yet. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The sound was deafening in the silence. I fumbled for it, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. The screen lit up, painfully bright in the darkness of the stairwell. Sarah, 3 missed calls. Sarah, 2 new messages. Mom, where are you? I'm at the station. Are you here? I thought I saw you. My heart stopped. She'd seen me, or thought she had, which meant I had seconds, maybe less, before she came looking. I shoved the phone back in my pocket and pressed myself flatter against the wall, barely breathing. Below me, I heard footsteps again. Faster now, moving toward the stairs. I should call her, Sarah said. Make sure she's okay. She was supposed to be home by now. Leave it, Marcus said. She's fine, probably just fell asleep in front of the TV like she always does. There was a pause. Then Sarah spoke again, and this time her voice was different, colder, more calculated. Mom's going to get the life insurance money. Everything in me went still. $500,000, Sarah continued. Dad left it to her in the will, every penny. So? Marcus sounded confused. So we make sure she signs it over. How? Grief counseling. Sarah's voice was smooth now, practiced. I'll tell her I need help paying for therapy, that I'm falling apart, that I can't afford it on my own. She'll give it to me, she always does. She feels guilty. Guilty for what? For everything. Sarah's voice hardened. For staying with him as long as she did, for not protecting me, for being too weak to see what was right in front of her face. I bit down on my hand to keep from screaming. Too weak, too blind. And if she doesn't? Marcus asked. The silence that followed was heavier than anything I'd ever felt. It pressed down on me like a physical weight, crushing the air from my lungs. If she doesn't, Sarah said slowly, then we make her. Marcus laughed, low, dark, familiar. I like the way you think, babe. Their footsteps started moving again toward the exit, away from me. I heard a door creak open somewhere in the distance, then slam shut, and suddenly I was alone in that stairwell with nothing but the sound of my own ragged breathing and the truth I couldn't escape. My daughter was a murderer, and I was next. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like someone had wrapped steel bands around it and pulled tight. The stairwell spun, those flickering yellow lights blurring into streaks, and I had to grip the railing with both hands to keep from collapsing right there on the grimy steps. If she doesn't, then we make her. Make me. Make me do what? Sign over the money? Or something worse? My phone buzzed again. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. I pulled it out with shaking hands. Sarah, 5 missed calls. Sarah, new message. Mom, please pick up. I'm worried about you. Sarah, new message. Are you still at the station? I'm coming to find you. Oh God. She was coming. My body finally listened to my brain, and I pushed off the wall, stumbling back up the stairs as fast as my 63-year-old legs would carry me. My knees screamed in protest. My hip, the one that had been bothering me since last winter, sent sharp bolts of pain up my spine with every step. I didn't care. I burst back onto the platform, gasping for air, and looked wildly around. The terminal stretched out empty and silent in both directions. No trains, no people. Just me and the hum of those damn fluorescent lights. Think. I couldn't go back through the main terminal, that's where they'd come from. The parking garage was on the other side, past the underpass. I'd have to go around, through the long way, past the closed coffee shop and the empty newsstands. My feet were already moving. I ran well, as close to running as I could manage, past the benches, past the vending machines that glowed blue and red in the darkness. My purse bounced against my hip, my coat flapped open. I must have looked like a mad woman. Maybe I was. Behind me, I heard a door slam. Mom? Sarah's voice, Close. Too close. I ducked behind a support column, pressing myself into the shadows, my heart hammering so hard I thought I might actually have a heart attack right there. Wouldn't that be ironic? Mother and father, both dead from heart failure within a week. Except mine would be real. I know you're here. Sarah's voice echoed across the empty platform. I saw you. Why are you hiding from me? Because you killed your father. Because you want my money. Because I don't know if you'll kill me too. I kept my mouth shut and tried to control my breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth, like that yoga instructor on YouTube had taught me. The one I'd watched alone in my apartment because I had nobody else to do yoga with. Too weak. Too blind. Sarah's words echoed in my head. Was she right? Had I always been too weak to see the truth? I thought back to when Sarah was 16. She'd changed that year. Became quiet, withdrawn. Stopped eating dinner with us. I'd chalked it up to teenage rebellion, normal growing pains. Tom had said she was just being dramatic. But there was that time she'd worn long sleeves all summer. That time she'd flinched when Tom raised his hand to reach for the salt shaker. That time I'd found her crying in the bathroom and she'd locked the door and wouldn't let me in. I'm fine, Mom. Just leave me alone. And I had. God help me, I'd left her alone. My eyes burned. Not now. I couldn't fall apart now. Footsteps, getting closer. I pressed harder against the column, making myself as small as possible. Through the gap between the column and the wall, I could see Sarah walking slowly down the platform, her phone held up like a flashlight, sweeping the beam back and forth. She looked so normal. Jeans, a black jacket, her blonde hair in that same ponytail. If you didn't know better, you'd think she was just a worried daughter looking for her mother. But I knew better now. She stopped about 10 feet from my hiding spot, close enough that I could hear her breathing. Close enough that if I'd sneezed or coughed or made any sound at all, she would have found me. Her phone rang. Yeah? She answered without checking the caller ID. Must have been Marcus. No, I don't see her. I know. Maybe she already left. The parking garage? Okay, I'll check. She turned and walked back the way she'd come, her footsteps fading into the distance. I waited, counted to 60 in my head, then 60 more. When I finally stepped out from behind the column, my legs were shaking so badly I had to lean against the wall for support. The parking garage. My car was in the parking garage. I had two choices. Stay here and wait for the morning train, or make a run for my car and pray I could get out before they found me. Neither option was good. But at least in my car, I could lock the doors. I could drive. I could get away. I started moving again, slower this time, staying close to the walls. The main terminal was ahead, a wide open space with high ceilings and too much light. I'd be exposed there, visible. But it was the only way to the parking garage. I kept my head down and walked fast, like I belonged there. Like I wasn't a terrified old woman running from her own daughter. Past the ticket counters. Past the closed Starbucks. Past a janitor mopping the floor who didn't even glance up at me. The entrance to the parking garage was just ahead, a set of glass doors with a sign that read P1, P4. I pushed through them, and the air changed immediately. Colder, the smell of oil and exhaust and stale cigarettes. My footsteps echoed in the concrete cavern. Level 3. I'd parked on level 3. I found the elevator, but the thought of being trapped in that small metal box made my skin crawl. The stairs were better, slower but safer. I climbed. My hips screamed. My knees burned, but I climbed. Level 1, level 2, level 3. The door to the parking level was heavy, and it groaned when I pushed it open. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the silence. I froze. Listened. Nothing. My car, a old blue Honda, with a dent in the passenger door, was parked near the far wall. I could see it from here, sitting under one of the few working lights. Safety, escape, freedom. I started toward it, fumbling in my purse for my keys. Where were they? Where the hell were my keys? My fingers closed around cold metal. Thank God. I was 20 feet from the car when I heard it. Footsteps. Behind me. Fast. I didn't turn around. Didn't look. Just ran. My lungs burned. My vision blurred. The keys slipped in my sweaty hand, but I held on, held on, held on. I reached the car and jammed the key into the lock. My hands were shaking so badly it took 3 tries to get it in. The door opened. I threw myself inside and slammed it shut, hitting the lock button so hard I thought I might break it. Only then did I look back. Sarah stood 15 feet away, her face pale in the overhead light. She wasn't running anymore, just standing there, staring at me through the windshield. And she was crying. Real tears, streaming down her face. "Mom," she said, her voice muffled through the glass. "Mom, please, let me explain." My hand hovered over the ignition. She took a step closer, then another. "Mom, I know you hurt us. I know what you must think. But you don't understand. You don't know what he did to me, what he put me through." Another step. "I had to do it, Mom. I had to. And I need you to understand. I need you to help me." She was at the car now, her hand pressed against my window, her face twisted in anguish. "Please, Mom, please don't leave me. I can't do this without you." I stared at her, at my daughter, the little girl I'd rocked to sleep, the teenager I'd failed to protect, the woman who'd murdered her father. My hand turned the key. The engine roared to life. Sarah's face changed, the tears stopped, her expression went flat, cold. She stepped back from the car and pulled out her phone. Through the windshield, I watched her type something. Then she looked up at me and smiled. Not a sad smile, not a desperate smile, a knowing smile. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, never taking my eyes off her. "Sarah, new message. You can run, Mom, but you're forgetting something important." Another message came through before I could process the first. "Sarah, new message. Dad's lawyer is calling you tomorrow about the will, and I'm the executor, which means every penny goes through me first." My blood turned to ice. "Sarah, new message. Drive away if you want, but you'll be back. Because if you don't sign over that money, well, Dad's not the only one who can have an accident." I stared at the screen, at my daughter standing in the parking garage, at the truth I could no longer avoid. She wasn't asking for my help. She was threatening me, and I had nowhere left to run. I didn't drive away. My hand was on the gear shift, engine running, every cell in my body screaming at me to step on the gas and never look back. But I couldn't move, couldn't think past the words burning on my phone screen. Dad's not the only one who can have an accident. Sarah stood there in the harsh fluorescent light, phone in hand, waiting. She wasn't crying anymore, wasn't even pretending. Just watching me with those cold, flat eyes like I was a problem she was calculating how to solve. This wasn't my daughter. Or maybe it was, and I just never wanted to see it. The passenger door handle rattled. I jumped, my head whipping to the side. Marcus. He was at the window, trying the door, his face pressed against the glass. "Come on," he said, his voice muffled. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. We just want to talk." My finger hovered over the lock button. One press, and he'd be inside. One press, and whatever was about to happen would happen. But something in me, some deep, stubborn part that had survived a bad marriage and loneliness and years of feeling invisible, that part refused to give in. I unlocked the door. Marcus slid into the passenger seat, bringing the smell of cigarettes and cheap cologne with him. He closed the door gently, carefully, like he was trying not to spook a wild animal. "Smart man." "Hi, Mom," he said softly. I hated that he still called me that. "Don't." My voice came out hoarse. "Don't call me that." He held up his hands. Okay, I get it. You're upset." Upset? I turned to look at him. Really look at him. 6 years I'd known this man. 6 years of Sunday dinners and birthday cards and him calling me when Sarah was too busy. "You killed Tom. You and her. You murdered him, and you're sitting here acting like I'm the one being unreasonable?" He deserved it. The words came out flat, matter of fact, like he was telling me the sky was blue. I felt something crack inside my chest. "Nobody deserves to be murdered," I whispered. He does. Marcus's jaw tightened. You don't know what he did to her. What he put her through for years. The things she told me. He stopped. Took a breath. He hurt her. Badly. And you weren't there to stop it. The accusation hung in the air between us like smoke. That's not fair, I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew they were hollow, knew they were the same excuse I'd been telling myself for 20 years. I didn't know. I didn't see. I wasn't there. Isn't it? Marcus leaned back against the seat. She told you things were wrong. Maybe not directly, but you saw the signs. The bruises she covered with makeup. The way she flinched when he raised his voice. You saw it all, and you did nothing. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. Because he was right. God help me, he was right. A knock on my window made us both jump. Sarah. She gestured for me to roll it down. I did. Slowly. She crouched down so we were eye level, her face inches from mine. This close, I could see the exhaustion carved into her features, the dark circles under her eyes. The way her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the door frame. I didn't want you to find out like this, she said quietly. How did you want me to find out? My voice broke. At all? She flinched. No. I never wanted you to know. I wanted you to think he died peacefully, that you could remember him however you needed to remember him, and move on. While you took my money? While I took what I was owed. Her voice hardened. Do you have any idea what it cost me? Living with what he did? Smiling through family dinners while everyone pretended we were normal? I earned that money. Every single penny. By killing him. By surviving him. We stared at each other. Mother and daughter. Strangers. I need you to understand something, Sarah said, and her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. I didn't want to hurt him because I'm evil. I wanted to hurt him because for 16 years of my life, he made me feel like I was nothing, like I was his property, like I didn't matter. She pulled something from her jacket pocket, a folder, worn, bent at the corners like it had been opened and closed 1,000 times. She held it out to me. What is this? I asked. Proof. I took the folder with shaking hands. Inside were papers, documents, photos. Medical records from when Sarah was 16. Emergency room visit, patient reports falling downstairs. But there was a note in the margin, handwritten, bruising pattern inconsistent with fall. Possible abuse. Patient refused to elaborate. A statement from her high school counselor. Sarah came to my office today visibly distressed. When asked what was wrong, she said, "My dad scares me." I asked if she felt safe at home. She said, "I don't know. I've contacted CPS, but she's 17, almost 18, and insists she doesn't want them involved." Photos. God, the photos. Sarah at 15, her arm in a sling. Sarah at 16, a black eye barely covered with makeup. Sarah at 17, sitting on her bed, looking at the camera with eyes that were already dead. My hands shook so badly the papers scattered across my lap. You never asked, Sarah said, and there was no anger in her voice now, just exhaustion. Not once, not when I stopped eating, not when I stopped coming home. Not when I moved out the day I turned 18 and didn't speak to him for 3 years. You never asked why. Because I was too scared of the answer. Because if I asked, I'd have to admit I'd failed her. Because it was easier to pretend everything was fine than to face the truth. I'm sorry. The words felt pathetically small. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I don't want your apologies. She stood up, brushing dirt off her jeans. I want your help. Help with what? She glanced at Marcus, then back at me. The lawyer's calling you tomorrow at 9. Tom left everything to you in the will, the house, the savings, the life insurance. $500,000 total. I don't want his money. Neither do I. Sarah's voice was ice. But I need it. Marcus and I are drowning in debt. Medical bills from my therapy. Legal fees from... She stopped. Swallowed hard. There are things we had to pay for, things that helped me survive, and now we have nothing, less than nothing. So you want me to just hand it over? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Sign away $500,000 to help you cover up a murder? Not a murder, Sarah's eyes flashed. Justice, and yes, that's exactly what I want. And if I don't? The question hung in the cold night air. Sarah looked at Marcus. Something passed between them, some silent conversation I wasn't privy to. Then she looked back at me. If you don't, she said slowly, carefully, then I'll tell the police you knew, that you helped us, that you were the one who gave me the idea in the first place. My blood turned to ice. That's a lie. Is it? Sarah tilted her head. You visited Dad 2 weeks before he died. You were alone with him for an hour. You had access to his medication. And you had motive years of resentment from a bad divorce. Who do you think they'll believe? The grieving daughter or the bitter ex-wife? I couldn't breathe. You wouldn't. Try me. We stared at each other across the gap between the car and the pavement, across years of pain and silence and failures I could never take back. This was my daughter, the baby I'd held in my arms, the little girl who'd read bedtime stories with me, the teenager I'd failed to protect, and she was threatening to destroy me. I need an answer, Mom. Sarah's voice was calm, clinical. Tomorrow at 9, that lawyer calls. You tell him you want to sign the inheritance over to me for grief counseling. You say Dad would have wanted it that way. You make it clean and simple, or you frame me for murder. Or I tell the truth about your part in it. She smiled, cold, empty. Your choice. She turned and started walking away, Marcus climbing out of the car to follow her. I sat there in the driver's seat, engine still running, surrounded by papers that proved my daughter's pain and my own cowardice. My phone rang. The screen lit up. Tom's lawyer. But it was only 10:47 p.m. Why was he calling now? My hands shook as I answered. Hello? Mrs. Chen? This is Robert Hewitt, Tom's attorney. I apologize for calling so late, but there's been a development with the will. My heart stopped. What kind of development? Tom updated his will 3 days before he died. I just received the notarized copy tonight. I'm afraid, he paused, I'm afraid you're no longer the primary beneficiary. The world tilted. What? He left everything to a woman named Claire Brennan. I don't know if you're familiar with... I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor of the car, the lawyer's voice still tinkling from the speaker. Sarah had killed Tom for nothing. There was no inheritance, no money, no $500,000. Just a dead man and a daughter who'd murdered him for a payout that didn't exist. I looked up through the windshield. Sarah was halfway across the parking garage, her back to me, phone pressed to her ear. Probably calling her lawyer. Probably already planning how to contest the will. And then she stopped. Slowly, she turned around. Even from 50 feet away, I could see her face go white. She'd just gotten the same call. Our eyes met across the distance, and I saw at the exact moment she realized what this meant. That everything she'd done, every risk she'd taken, every line she'd crossed, it was all for nothing. She started running toward my car. But I was already moving. I slammed the car into reverse and hit the gas. I drove for 20 minutes before I realized I had no idea where I was going. The streets blurred past in a haze of streetlights and stop signs I barely registered. My hands gripped the steering wheel like it was the only solid thing left in the universe. Behind me, the city lights faded into darkness, and ahead, was nothing but empty highway and the question that kept circling in my brain like a vulture. Who the hell was Claire Brennan? I pulled off at the next exit, some nowhere truck stop with a flickering neon sign that read, "Eat," in angry red letters. The parking lot was nearly empty except for 2 semis and a rusted-out pickup. Perfect. Anonymous. Safe. I killed the engine and sat there in the dark, listening to the tick-tick-tick of the cooling motor and my own ragged breathing. The folder was still on the passenger seat. Sarah's folder, her proof. I didn't want to look at it again. Didn't want to see those photos, those reports, the evidence of my failure printed out in black and white. But my hands reached for it anyway, pulling it into my lap like a penance I'd been putting off for 20 years. The diner attached to the truck stop glowed through my windshield, warm yellow light spilling onto cracked pavement. Through the windows I could see a waitress wiping down tables, an old man hunched over coffee at the counter. Normal people, living normal lives. I grabbed the folder and got out of the car. The bell above the door chimed as I walked in. The waitress, 60-something with gray hair and tired eyes, looked up and smiled. "Sit anywhere you'd like, honey." I chose a booth in the back corner, as far from the windows as I could get, slid into the cracked vinyl seat, and spread the folder out in front of me like I was preparing for an exam I'd already failed. The waitress appeared with a coffee pot. "What can I get you?" "Just coffee. Black." She poured, and the smell, bitter and strong, made my stomach turn. I hadn't eaten since lunch, hadn't even thought about food. How do you think about something as mundane as eating when your entire world is collapsing? "You okay, honey?" The waitress was looking at me with concern. Was I okay? My daughter had murdered my ex-husband. She'd threatened to frame me. She'd killed him for money that didn't exist. And I was sitting in a truck stop diner at 11 o'clock at night, trying to figure out whether I should turn her in or burn the evidence. "I'm fine," I lied. She didn't believe me, I could see it in her eyes, but she was kind enough to leave me alone. I turned back to the folder. The medical records came first. I forced myself to read every word this time, every notation, every doctor's observation. Patient presents with bruising to upper arms, consistent with gripping. Patient reports chronic headaches, difficulty sleeping, anxiety. Patient becomes agitated when asked about home life. Refuses to elaborate. Page after page after page of my daughter's pain, documented by strangers while I sat at home watching reality TV and telling myself everything was fine. The school counselor's notes were worse. Sarah told me today that she feels safer at school than at home. When I asked why, she said, "Because my dad can't reach me here." She wouldn't say more. "I've reported this to CPS, but without concrete evidence of abuse, there's little they can do. I'm worried about this child." Dated the 15th of March, 2008. Sarah was 16. I tried to remember what I was doing that March. What was so important that I missed the fact that my daughter was falling apart? Tom and I had been separated for a year by then. The divorce was almost final. I was living in a studio apartment downtown, working double shifts at the hospital to make rent, trying to convince myself I was better off alone. Sarah was living with Tom. She'd chosen him. Said she wanted to stay in her school, didn't want to switch districts. I'd been hurt, God. I'd been so hurt, but I'd let her go, because that's what you do when your teenage daughter makes a choice, right? Except it wasn't a choice. It was a cry for help I'd been too wrapped up in my own pain to hear. My coffee sat untouched, going cold while I read through therapy notes from when Sarah was 23. Patient reports long-term psychological trauma stemming from childhood abuse. Patient describes father as controlling, manipulative, occasionally violent. Patient expresses feelings of abandonment regarding mother's divorce and subsequent distance. Feelings of abandonment. I pushed the papers away and pressed my palms against my eyes until I saw stars. She was right. Sarah was right about all of it. I had abandoned her. I'd chosen my own survival over hers and told myself I was doing the right thing by giving her space, by not asking questions, by pretending the signs weren't there. And Tom? I pulled out my phone, stared at the screen. I could call the police right now, tell them everything I'd heard, show them the evidence. Sarah would go to prison. Marcus, too. They'd spend the rest of their lives behind bars for murder. It would be justice. It would be the right thing to do. My finger hovered over the emergency call button, but I didn't press it. Because somewhere beneath the horror and the betrayal, there was a part of me, a small, terrible part, that understood why she'd done it. That looked at those photos and those reports and thought, maybe he did deserve it. I set the phone down. The waitress came back with the coffee pot. "Warm that up for you?" "Actually," my voice came out hoarse. "Do you have a phone I could use? Mine's almost dead." It was a lie. My phone was at 60%, but I needed to make a call that couldn't be traced back to me. She pointed to an old payphone on the wall near the bathrooms. "Still works, if you can believe it. Quarter a call." I dug through my purse for change and walked to the phone. My hands shook as I dropped the coins in and dialed the number I'd found on the lawyer's business card. 3 rings. Hewitt and Associates. This is Robert Hewitt. Mr. Hewitt, this is... I stopped. Thought. This is someone who knew Tom Chen. I have questions about Claire Brennan. A pause. I'm sorry, who is this? It doesn't matter. Just tell me, who is she? Why did Tom leave everything to her? Another pause. Longer this time. I can't discuss the details of a will with someone who isn't... Was she his girlfriend? The words tumbled out before I could stop them. His mistress? Did he have another family? Just tell me that much, please. The lawyer sighed. Ma'am, I really shouldn't. Please. Something in my voice must have gotten through to him, because his tone softened. Claire Brennan is Tom's daughter. The floor dropped out from under me. That's impossible. Sarah is his only daughter from his marriage to you, the lawyer said carefully. But Tom had another relationship. Before you. Claire was born in 1987. Tom paid child support for years but never had much contact with her. When her mother died 6 months ago, they reconnected. He updated his will to include her. I did the math in my head. That was 2 years before Tom and I met. Which meant he had a daughter before me. My voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. And he never told me. I'm sorry. I thought you knew. I hung up. Stood there with my hand on the receiver, staring at the graffiti scratched into the payphone's metal shell. Someone had carved "Truth Hurts" into the surface. Yeah, it really did. I walked back to my booth on legs that didn't feel like they belonged to me, slid into the seat, stared at the folder. Sarah had killed Tom for an inheritance that went to a half-sister she didn't even know existed. The irony was so sharp it could cut. My phone buzzed, multiple messages coming through all at once. Sarah. 8 missed calls. Sarah, new message. We need to talk. Now. Sarah, new message. Did you know about Claire? Did you know? Sarah, new message. Answer me or I swear to God. I turned the phone off. Sat there in that bright diner booth surrounded by evidence of my daughter's pain and my own cowardice, and made a decision. I wasn't going to call the police. But I wasn't going to give Sarah what she wanted either. Instead, I was going to do something I should have done 20 years ago. I was going to face the truth. All of it. Even the parts that destroyed me. I pulled a pen from my purse and a napkin from the dispenser. Started writing. Dear Sarah, I know what you did. I know why you did it. And I know it didn't matter. The money's gone to someone neither of us knew existed. I should turn you in. That's what a good person would do. But I'm not a good person. I'm the woman who failed to protect you when you needed me most, who chose her own pain over your safety, who looked away when looking would have meant admitting I'd made terrible choices. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to disappear for a while. Give us both time to figure out who we are now that all the lies are gone. The police might come asking questions about Tom's death. You'll have to answer them without me. As for the inheritance, it was never yours to take. But maybe that's fitting. Maybe none of us deserved anything from him except the truth. I'm sorry I wasn't the mother you needed. I'm sorry I can't be the mother who saves you now. All I can do is step back and let you live with what you've done. Just like I have to live with what I didn't do. Mom. I folded the napkin and tucked it into the folder along with all the evidence of Sarah's pain. Tomorrow morning, I'd mail this folder to her. No return address. No trace. And then I'd drive until I found a place where nobody knew my name or my story or the choices that had brought me here. The waitress came by one more time. You sure you don't want something to eat, honey? I looked up at her, this stranger with kind eyes who probably had her own pain, her own failures, her own daughters she'd let down in ways big and small. Actually, I said, I'll take some toast and more coffee. Because I had a long drive ahead of me, and an even longer reckoning with the woman I'd been and the woman I needed to become. Outside, the first light of dawn was starting to break over the horizon, pale and uncertain, but there. My phone buzzed one more time before the battery finally died. Sarah, new message. I'll find you. You know I will. This isn't over. I looked at the message for a long moment. Then I dropped the phone in my cold coffee and watched it sink. She was right. It probably wasn't over. But for the first time in 20 years, I wasn't running from the truth anymore. I was running towards something else. Maybe not redemption, maybe not forgiveness, but maybe, just maybe, a version of myself who could look in the mirror without seeing a coward staring back. The toast arrived, warm and buttered, and I ate it slowly while the sun came up and the world kept turning despite everything that had shattered in the darkness. Some secrets I'd learned are heavier than others, and some mothers have to carry them alone.